this month was Suicide Awareness Month. And then I started looking for just local organizations that help people deal with that. And you came up. And then I was like, oh crap, we're close to each other. And I read your story. I read a few articles on like the Marines website and read about One Tribe Foundation and what you did with 22 Kill. And it really inspired me to want to reach out to you. And so I'm so glad you came here today, man.
Appreciate the invite, dude.
Yeah, man. So tell me your story, like what your experience in the Marines and kind of what led you to start 22 Kill and then how it evolved into One Tribe.
Okay, how much time do you have?
Whatever, man. Yeah.
No, look, I grew up in Louisiana. My parents divorced at a very young age, and you know, I'm a firm believer in your family's who you make it. I feel as though DNA is just a formality. And then I learned that nowhere more so than in the Marine Corps. But my parents now are my parents. That's my mom and dad. And my little brother's my little brother. My older brother's my older brother. And, the other family I talk to is because they don't impede on my peace. And, because my wife and my sons are my everything, and they're my reason to get up and keep going and showing up to the circus every day and trying to siphon through the various clowns. But, it was interesting leaving one home that had structure and discipline and left and right lateral limits at a young age, and then moved to a home that didn't have any of those things. And I had to grow up quick because I didn't have any expectations as far as being a constructive young man that is respectful in all the things, even though that's the way I was raised to be. And so, and it was at a very vital, pivotal, and vulnerable time in my life as a 12, 13-year-old kid. And so, and I say that knowing, having a lot of reminders, having a 13-year-old son, where I'm like, oh yeah,
I remember this.
I did that too, And so I moved from Louisiana to Coppell, and luckily I was able to excel as an athlete in football. Football was my religion outside of my religion, and my love for Christ, and still made a lot of stupid decisions and was still very stubborn, definitely questioned authority. And I think that stemmed from having people that I loved and respected fail me. And that carried over into everything, because I'm a recovering alcoholic, addict, womanizer. I mean, the list goes on, and so I pushed everything to the nth degree from an early age, definitely from 12, 13 years old. I learned quickly that I suck doing anything in moderation. It's either, pedal to the floor or I don't show up.
I can relate to that, man.
Yeah, there's no gray.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's good, bad, or indifferent, right? So somebody somewhere is going to be entertained somehow.
Right.
And so that I definitely took that into the weight room. I took it into the football field. I took it into church. I took it anywhere you could take it. I took it in all the bad places too. And, I've heard a lot of people. I lived a lot of my life being very destructive and going out of my way to be completely numb while going out of my way to feel anything all at the same time. And so it definitely made for a very interesting, tumultuous young life that led into a young adult life that led into the Marine Corps, which I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of my service. I'm very, very proud of my family's service. Very proud of my family and supporting me through my service and loving me through a lot of very difficult things. And, the Marine Corps is something that I knew I was going to do since I was really young. And I was very close to my grandmother growing up, my father's mom, Mimi. And, I was the baby for a long time. And she just took me under her wing. And she really showed me what service above self looked like. And she'd take me to the nursing homes and, take me to play bingo with them. And I'd talk to all the World War II vets and I'd hear their stories. And I just remember being enamored by them and in awe of them and their courageousness and their vulnerability. They were so open about it. And a lot of them would get emotional. And I remember it being very awkward. I was a very young kid, and I would listen to them talk and tell these stories, and they'd get emotional, and I wasn't accustomed to that.
Well, and it was probably hard to relate to their stories too, right? When you're
well, of course, I was, 5, 6, when this all started, but I think because of the way God made me, it spoke to my soul every time, though. I didn't understand, but I got it. And I think that's the gladiator gene in me that's in my bloodline all the way back to the 1600s in Scotland. I think it definitely spoke to my inner warrior. And I think everybody's got one. I think everybody's born with one. Whether you go put on a camouflage uniform and go serve in the military, that doesn't make you a warrior. That's a job. Doesn't make you a warrior. I think everybody's got an inner warrior. And I feel like at the age of 8, I had made a strong determination that I'm going to be a United States Marine. And that was mainly because of the way my Mimi would talk about my grandfather, who was fought in World War II in Korea. And her eyes would light up and her chest would swell with pride. And I was just thinking to myself, like, man, if she's going to talk about me that way,
I got to do something big.
I got to be a Marine, And so my uncle, my dad's older brother, not oldest brother, but my uncle was also a Marine, some third generation. And, when I graduated Coppell, because there was a lot of teachers and administrators that believed in me a hell of a lot more than I believed in me. Because my outlet was the football field. My outlet was the gym. My outlet was rugby during the off season. It was violence, right? It was the only thing I knew. I didn't know any healthy things aside from church, which I didn't really get. I got, but I didn't get because I was never all in. And I put on a show, that's for sure, like I was all in. But I was never really all in.
I think it's not. It's pretty when you're younger. I think that's common, especially for a lot of boys. And they're trying to. You're just kind of faking it till you make it. You're just and there's probably a lot of. Using that physicality as an outlet too can be a thing. A lot of times that's how we express ourselves. That you've got that energy and you feel like this is how I can express myself and vent out. So I think it's
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that way either.
No.
Right.
And the fact that, you said earlier, you're an open book, being able to express yourself now is probably like the way you're now is not something you were probably able to do when you were younger.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That had everything to do with how I was raised.
Yeah.
And how they were raised and then so on and so forth.
Sure.
Yeah. It's called generational trauma. Mm. Yeah. I know that now. Right. And I also know that it's up to me to break that cycle. And me and my wife, I can't do it alone. So we have kids, even though they're not hers, they're still hers. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we have to work at every day, and we only do that by being comfortable with the person staring back at us in the mirror. you got to be in love with that person first. Every emotion in your life and every decision you make is based off that feeling.
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time to learn that. It took me a long time to love the dude looking back at him. And, so going to the Marines was, I joined beginning of my senior year. I was already 18 and went and signed up. Didn't tell anybody, didn't run it by anybody, didn't sit anybody down and say, hey, Pop, my dad, or hey, Dad, my stepmom. Nobody. None of my coaches, which were strong male figures in my life. And my uncle, Ben, who's since passed, he was a very strong male presence in my life, and didn't sit him down. Nobody. Wow. Just because it was like, this is what I want to do, and I don't give a damn what anyone thinks about it. And, at my high school graduation is when my dad met my recruiter, Staff Sergeant Orberg, who showed up in his dress blues and shook my dad's hand and said, we're honored to give Jake a shot at being a part of this prestigious gun club, Mr. Schick. And my dad looked at me and was like, what did you do? Join the Marines, Dad. Why would you do that? And I didn't understand I call it anger. I think the dumb kid in me thought it was anger, but it was clearly more concern than anything. And, so was able to talk one of my buddies into going with me, and who since passed, buried him a few years ago. And, but I had this crazy advantage because of my lineage. I knew that I was so convicted in becoming a United States Marine that there was no alternative. The alternative was death.
Right.
No amount of pain was going to stop me.
Yeah. It was like you're calling. You're like, I can't do anything else but this. This has to be it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I was pretty accustomed to pain at that point anyway, just because of what I put my body through to be a competitor, playing Texas football and on a big stage in the Friday Night Lights. And it's everything everybody hears about. I mean, it really is it's religion, and I loved it. I still love the game of football because it saved me. It literally saved me. I mean, if I didn't have that, and I didn't have that outlet, I mean, I would have ended up dead or in prison for sure. Because I was able to leave everything out there.
Right. Yeah.
And so me and my buddy we were very strategic in when we signed up to not go immediately after graduation, because we wanted a few months to play before we had to go do, adult shit.
Right.
And then, my mother opened my door. God rest her soul. She opened my door 9/11, and me and Danny were passed out. And opened the door and moved all the empty beer cans, and they're on the TV. A plane just hit the World Trade Center, and I turned on the TV, and then not long after I turned it on, and we were sitting there watching, and turned it on, and we watched the second plane hit the South Tower, and I looked at him and I said, "We're going to war."
You knew.
You knew right away.
How did that feeling? Do you remember that feeling?
A very sobering moment.
Yeah.
Very sobering moment. Yep.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word, because it was, you went from, you were 18, 19 at one time, full of piss and vinegar, right? And you feel like you have all the tools to take on the world. You don't need anybody's help, because you're stupid, because you haven't lived enough life.
Yeah. And
all that changed immediately. And I realized right then in that moment just how human and vulnerable I am, how small I am. And not long after that, my phone rang, and it was my recruiter, and he said, "Hey, y'all pack your trash because you're both combat billets, and you're going to have to get trained up because we're clearly under attack and going to war." And so we ended up going to boot camp. We were there I think the first week of October. We were there shortly thereafter. And, a lot of these guys remember the day that they went in or landed in boot camp, regardless of the branch and everything, and the day they got out. And I'm like, I can give you a general ballpark. I don't remember the exact day.
Yeah.
Because it's not vital information, right? Like, and if I've trained myself to where if I don't need that up here, it's getting dumped, you know, because I have a lot of stuff that I need to store on a daily basis and then move on. And besides that, you know, I've been hit in the head more than once, you know, so there's valuable space up there that I need, because not all of it is functional. So like, in large part, majority of that reasoning behind it is it's self-induced pain for sure. But when we landed in MCRD San Diego, and you know, the journey started, and it started with vigor and intensity, you know, because it was if I had $1 for every time I heard terrorist or I heard Taliban or terminology of the like for those 3 months, man, I mean, I could go pay cash for a ranch. It was very ingrained for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, these drill instructors were, you know, Marine Corps drill instructors don't need a whole lot of motivation outside of being Marine Corps drill instructors, because it's a very high-paced, high-tempo job, and they're very good at what they do. And so they knew right away that I was right where I wanted to be. I think they saw that, and you know, I became first squad leader, and with the last name like Schick, and our guide's last name was Schmitter, so that was interesting for 3 months. You know, but there was a lot of highs and a lot of lows in boot camp, and there was a lot of turmoil, and you see a lot of things, you learn a lot of things, and I was very grateful for all of it. It was a test of my mental fortitude. Not so much physical. I mean, they get you where they need you, right? I mean, it's not that they don't push you, because they do, but I mean, your brain will quit long before your body. And I learned that definitely in the Marines. But I ended up graduating boot camp, and left boot camp and went to School of Infantry at Camp Pendleton, and I loved every minute of that. That's where you go from a basically trained Marine to a full-on trained Marine, because I was a school-trained 0311 rifleman, and then when I got to my unit, cross-trained 0331 machine gunner. And I got to thank Sergeant Atterbury for that. I was walking up to the unit, walking in after I checked in, and he's this tall, lanky guy, and never a dull moment with him either. He could have made millions as a stand-up comedian, but he looked at me, he was like, "You're a big kid, Schick. You want to be a gunner?" And I was like, "Absolutely, Sergeant. Like, you're afraid to, you're new. You're the FNG, as it's known as." And
FNG. You're fresh new guy. FN new guy.
There you go. Yeah. And so you don't want to say no, right? Yeah. I mean, because you don't want to start off on the bad foot.
Yeah.
But my unit, just 1st Battalion, 23rd Marines, Bravo Company, and I was in weapons platoon. I mean, they're a great, large majority, man. Great Marines, great men, strong men. Very, very proud to say I was a small part of that unit, and being, battling bastard. It was the honor of my life, aside from being a husband and a father. I mean, it was, those dudes made me a better man, period, just by their existence. And you need that during, hell, you need that daily, Yeah. But these guys were, some of them were seasoned, some of them weren't. And we all kind of grew together, and we grew close, and we knew we were going to go. We just didn't know when. And so we ended up getting our card pulled by the War Lab in DC. And, we did our workup at 29 Palms, California, glorious 29 Palms, which was a great environment to learn how to be operational in a desert environment.
Right.
29 Palms is a pretty good one. And, but we got there and we started training, and it was different because, we knew that we were doing this training and doing the same thing 5,000 times every single day. And it wasn't monotonous at that point because we knew what it was leading to.
Yeah. It was serious.
It was very serious. Yeah. And not to say that we didn't play and...
No. But yeah, over preparing and doing it 5 million times, you're cool with that because you're like, when it comes down to it and the real shit hits the fan.
We knew where we were headed.
Yeah.
Right? And we knew we were going to... More often than not, and we spoke about it, we knew we were going to go to Helmand Province in Afghanistan, or we knew that we were going to go to the Sunni Triangle in Iraq, which was the already coined the death triangle, you know. And when I do public speaking, I like to joke and say because, you know, the unicorn triangle or rainbow triangle is already taken, so they call it death triangle, you know. And interesting enough, too, it's like places that we didn't want to go. It's like, well, we probably should have thought about that before we volunteered for infantry in the United States Marine Corps. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's just one of those things that, but, you know, we ended up, we did a lot of training and, you know, we got better and we got stronger and we got faster and, you know, we got closer. And all the while, you know, I was just seeing how much I could push the envelope on drinking and doing the Marine Corps stuff. You know, because it's definitely in my blood, you know, the whole alcoholism and addiction stuff. So we ended up finally being told where we were going to go. And we knew as soon as we were told the night before we left, we were going to go to the Sunni Triangle of Iraq. So on the way there, we stopped in Germany. And I remember getting told, you know, all right, Marines, we have 2 hours. You know, this was 20 years ago, so there's like you have 2 hours, 2 beer maximum. It's not what I heard. You know, of course, me being me, I heard you have 2 hours to drink as much beer as humanly possible, and which I did. You know, and I have the page 11s to prove it. And it, you know, just being, I guess, lucky for me. When it came to doing the actual Marine Corps shit, you know, I never got lax doing that stuff, you know. But on Liberty, I was fine not remembering the entire weekend. I mean, that was just kind of how I operated. And to be fair, I usually wasn't alone in that. But I think knowing for a lot of us that, you know, had unaddressed childhood trauma, which is 99.9% of us, and especially for the less mature ones like me, it was like, hey, you know, here's a chance to just let's go be numb for a little bit before we got to get back to real world stuff. And so that carried over. But we got to Iraq and we were only in Kuwait a couple of days and landed in Al Asad, which where our base was. And man, it got real fast. And, you know, we got busy doing what we were doing and all was part of the React team. And then on September 20th, 2004, React got called and I just had a bad feeling about it. And I knew we were going to get hit. I felt it. And, you know, people ask me like, well, how'd you know? I'm like, well, my belief is that it was a cross between, you know, God and my grandfather from beyond the grave. That's my belief. Mm. And so I did
a familial instincts kind of a thing.
Yep. Like I knew something was coming and I knew it was going to probably be bad.
You said React.
So React or QRF, Quick Reaction Force. I mean, me and 9 Marines, we operated in 2-door soft top Humvees. We had 2 of those. And I mean, essentially what it is our job is to neutralize any threat in the area of operation that we're in, that the unit's in, that shouldn't be there.
Gotcha.
That's our job. And so we loaded up and I ended up being in the driver's seat, kicked the driver out of the driver's seat, put a bomb blanket down that told all the guys button up. And because I just knew something was coming. And then 3 minutes later, we had a triple stack tank mine. It was pressure plate ignited, which means... you know, as soon as that plate goes down, it lights a fuse, which makes the bombs go off. And it was 3 155 millimeter mortar rounds stacked. And what that equates to in layman's terms for people that aren't familiar with ordnance is it was a big ass bomb. And it blew up directly beneath me and blew me 30 feet top of the Humvee.
How many?
30-ish.
You went out? 30 feet?
Yeah, because it wasn't up armored. It was soft top.
Soft top. Okay, so
yeah, if it was up armored, it would killed all of us.
Right.
Yeah, nobody would have survived. Because there would have been nowhere for that pressure to go.
Right.
It would have killed everybody. And so, by the grace of God, we were in a 2-door soft top, you know, and better me than my Marines.
Putting on the bomb blankets, is that like normal? Like the ones that you put down before? Is that like standard training?
We didn't all have them.
Okay.
The important people in our unit had them.
Got it.
And I just felt like we needed it more. So I took it. And because
you were right.
Well, whoever was telling me to do that, whatever spirit, whatever was right.
Yeah.
And I essentially was just doing what my gut told me to do, which I believe is guardian angels, God. You know, I think those gut feelings are there for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I think I just didn't question any of it. And so I knew it was bad before I hit the ground. I knew this was bad. It was going to be a long day. And I hit the deck and just trying to get my wits about me, and it was very chaotic and it was very loud while being very silent. It's a very eerie feeling because I never lost consciousness or went into shock.
So you were just aware of everything going on. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. And the guys hadn't gotten to me because the sand over there is like baby powder. Super, super fine. So, I mean, it's like dust. It takes forever for it to settle.
Right.
And so I started my self-assessment, and I noticed quickly that it was bad. And so I just said a prayer to God and said, hey, big man, I just ask you don't take me in front of my brothers. That's all I ask. You know, when the skids leave the deck, I'm all yours. But just don't take me in front of my family. That was my hyper focus. And
where you drove, so the mines were directly underneath your tire, front left tire.
Mm-hmm.
So you were the only one essentially affected in the Humvee?
Physically.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there were some blown eardrums and
right.
minor wounds, but I was the only one severely wounded. It blew up literally directly beneath me. Wow. I mean, the steering wheel disengaged, hit me in my chest, made all my mags explode, and broke my ribs. All these whole series of events happened before I was ever ejected, you know, because it's just the destruction of those things is, you know, there's a reason they became our enemy's number one weapon. And because they knew they couldn't beat us head up. I mean, they knew.
Right.
And I mean, we knew that. It didn't take much. And so we, you know, it just was, we didn't realize, I think, that they were even going to be as prevalent as they became. You know, it became to a point where it was not a matter of, if you had to be operational outside the wire or outside of a fob, forward observation base, like it wouldn't matter if you hit or experience an IED explosion. It was when.
Yeah, they're just everywhere.
That's how they became. I mean, they were that prevalent.
Yeah.
And so we ended up, you know, getting hit that day, and you know, it was very. Again, I knew it was bad. I mean, I saw my left leg wrapped around itself, and my fibia and tibia exposed, and my left arm was destroyed, and part of my left hand was hanging down by my elbow, and I mean, it was bad. You know, couldn't breathe, and so that's when I said that prayer, because I was like, man, just don't take me in front of them, please. Like, just don't do that. And you know, the guys finally got to me, picked me up, took me to the second vehicle, it took me back to the command post where Doc was ready and waiting, and just get to work on me, and which he did, and started doing what he does. And yeah, I'm grateful for that moment, because yeah, I got to tell the Marine bravado, like the tough guy bullshit, went out the window.
Yeah.
You know, and it was human to human connection. which we didn't have a lot of, really.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate to me, but it's
hard, because like you have to. I can imagine you have to have this level of guard because of all the shit that's going on there.
You're right.
You got it. So and
you're exactly right.
And so you're trying to stay strong in that sense, but at the same time, it could be the other way, maybe more therapeutic and beneficial. In a sense. So it's like,
well, so you're exactly right. 1, 2. This is what I take issue with is that whether I'm speaking to, Navy SEALs, a professional football team, everything in between, Fortune 500 company, doesn't like, I usually will ask who in here thinks they're more badass than a Spartan. And to date, no one's ever like thrown their hand up, because at that point they probably realize like, I'm going to verbally unzip you in front of God and everybody if you raise your hand. Because it's, come on. No, you're not. Right? They didn't have boomsticks. Right.
These guys were, it was
they
personal.
They didn't kill you from afar.
Right. It was right there in front of you.
They saw the whites of the eyes every time. Right. And so it's like, come on. But, to everyone's credit, they never raise their hand because they're not idiots. But after every Spartan battle, it was mandatory for them to mourn their losses. It was mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, how have we regressed as a society so much?
Yeah.
How have we completely negated the humanality so much?
Yeah.
We've just steadily regressed.
It's crazy how much, there were so many great philosophical minds from the Greek and the Romans that were around at the time that I think heavily influenced what warriors were or what warriors were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a fighter. It was somebody who used their mind, who used virtue to live their lives. So I think it's like being raised in that environment of where your life is not just that of a warrior, but also of a virtuous person. I think it's not something that is taught as much in American society, virtue in sense.
For sure.
Largely.
And I was told by a Vietnam veteran years ago that he said, I was sitting with a group of people and he was giving us this, I don't even know what you want to call it, but it was interesting to say the least. And you could tell he was very much a thinker. And he said, here's the thing. The government looks at us. This is the analogy used, and I thought it was brilliant. And I still think it's brilliant. And I think this in large part explains why warriors aren't as virtuous as they used to be. Is because the government looks at our bodies are the farm, right? And our brain is the farmer. And then once the government gets what they need out of the farm, they're not really concerned with the farmer. And so I think the difference being is back in the day, these guys would end up being dignitaries, part of the local government and part of, and were what people wanted them to be a part of that because of their experiences.
Right.
Whereas now everything is smoke and mirrors and our government's full of shit and it's self-interest, self-gain, and playing a game and pitting us against each other in order to get more power. And if you have any curiosity about how I feel about that, I'm with you, man. I just made it pretty. It's a pretty blunt way to say it. And it's unfortunate, but that's where we are. And so anyway, I end up leaving that place after I got to tell these Marines how much I love them and that what they mean to me, and they had to go fight for me. I was out of the fight, and of course I'm sure I know for a fact I wasn't real happy in the process, but because some serious pain set in. But they ended up loading me up on the Black Hawk, and I remember my platoon sergeant kissed me on my forehead, and he said, And he was the last one off the bird, and he was trying not to cry when he said it. He kissed me on the forehead, and he said, "We'll see you soon, Jack London." And I was like, how in the hell could you look at me in my face and lie to me right now? He called me Jack London because my grandfather's name was Jack London Schick, and he always just called me Jack London, I guess because he wasn't a fan of the name Jake. I don't know. But I was okay with it because to me it was an honor.
Right.
And so it pissed me off that this guy I loved and respected so much would look at me in my face and lie to me, you know, for the sake of protection of something that's out of his control and my control. And so it made me even more angry than I already was. And bird took off, and I left my family, and that was the hardest part of all of it. I mean, all the surgeries, all the blood transfusions, all the drugs, that was the hardest part, was leaving them. And to this day, that's the biggest part I struggle with, is because, you know, when Doc was working on me and some of the guys were telling me, you know, it's your bird home, Jake, it's your bird home. I just remember thinking to myself, like, I finally was like, shut up. Wherever you are is my home.
Right.
Like, that's the way that this has got to be. And ended up taking me to, but I got the attention of one of the litter crew, and he came up to me and he yelled I yelled in his ear, "How long?" Because I felt.
You thought this was it.
I felt life leaving my body. I knew that I was in bad shape.
Was this a quick, like, how long after?
42 minutes.
Oh, so you were already on the bird within 42 minutes after getting checked out and everything like that. Okay.
And I remember the kid came back to me and he yelled in my right ear, 12 mics, 12 minutes. And I immediately closed my eyes and said a prayer, and I just said, "Hey, big man, I'm going to have to renege on the original verbal agreement. I think I got 12 minutes left in me." You know, as if like it was up to me.
Right.
You know, but I feel like to a degree, I was just speaking to my parents about this morning. I think to a degree, in some situations, not all, I think God will meet you halfway if you have the will to live.
Fight. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it was one of those things where it was, how much mercy you're shown is up to you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you feel like how much of it was like acceptance, knowing that, you know, you're looking down and seeing, you know, man, I'm hurt and feeling like your body, your energy's leaving you, versus you saying, versus you fighting and saying, no, I really want to, I want to fight to the end. You know, like, how did, in your mind, like, how did you know that, or how did you accept it versus saying, you know, I'm not going to let this get to me, you know, I'm going to fight it to the end. Like, what was it, that shift, you know?
Well, when my platoon sergeant lied to my face, it was like, I want to live out in spite of you.
I gotcha.
That was like the immediate, how dare you? How dare you do that?
Yeah.
And then it went from, okay, 12 minutes. Like, 12 minutes is not long.
Right.
I mean, even when you're in that amount of pain, which is indescribable, and it's like, but the whole time I never lost that fighting spirit, that warrior spirit. I never lost that.
Right.
I had that the whole time. And it was like, okay, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I feel like God met me halfway, and it was like, hey, Jake, what do you want? And I wanted to let my warrior eat. And so I just kept fighting. And we landed in Balad, which was literally a tent. They called the field hospital, and they loaded me in there and started working on me. And the last thing I remember was the doc. One of the docs was sewing up my face, and the litter crew had a sheet on me, and because my doc had already I wasn't wearing anything. He'd cut everything off. And I remember the doctor sewing up my face because I had shrapnel on my chin and my neck and side of my face. And he said, oops. And I was like, what do you mean, oops, doc? And he's like, hey, sorry, Marine. Messed up on your stitches. You're going to have to start again. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know if you've seen me from the neck down, but I'm fairly certain the scratches on my face are the least of our worries right now.
Right.
And he gave this little nod to the anesthetist, and that's the last thing I remember. He gave this, like, please put this on a bitch to sleep. And I was out. And I remember Nurse Jax, who I still think to this day, I tell my wife this all the time. She was a guardian angel, had to be. She woke me up and she said, hey, Marine, we had to take your right foot. And I remember thinking back to the self-assessment, and I was like, my right foot looked normal. Like, it hurt, but it looked normal.
Uh-huh.
And my left foot was the one that was, my left leg was so destroyed. And I was like, huh. And I audibly said, you took the wrong damn foot. And I'm still in my thoughts. And she goes, what? I said, you took the wrong damn foot. You had a 50-50 shot. And I said, good enough for government work. And she was like, no, baby. And I will never forget, she took a surgical glove out of like her cargo pocket and filled it with sand and held it up and said, this was your right foot when you got here. It was dead when you got here. And what happened, in hindsight, looking back, it was the firewall of the Humvee folded on my right foot. Because in those Humvees, the gas is where the gas is on all of our cars, and the brake is where the brake is. And it folded and crushed my right foot before it blew me out.
Oh, wow.
So that completely impeded any blood flow to my foot. So my foot was dead when I got there. Doc knew it too. Doc never found a pulse. And he just didn't tell me, And so I think Doc knew probably more than anybody that if I was probably going to make it. But it was going to be a hell of a long road. And, by the grace of God, Doc had a lot of experience working in ERs and hospitals. And, in that situation, you didn't want anyone green behind the ears working on you. You wanted that guy because he knew what he was doing. And he was very calm, cool, and collected. You need that, right? You need that lack of emotion in those high-stress situations. And he's the epitome of that. And so it was just it was a very long, arduous, painful evolution that I'm very grateful for, because regardless of a lot of dumbass decisions I've made since then, I have a very different understanding of life and how much of a blessing and a gift each breath is than probably a lot of people. And I'm grateful for that. It sucked to arrive at that, but, I know how fragile life is. And so I'm grateful that I was given a second chance. Regardless of how much I've tried to screw that up, I'm grateful. But it was definitely, a long day at the office.
I bet.
And ended up leaving there and went to Germany. Left Germany, went to Bethesda, Maryland, and that's where I saw my blood family for the first time. And it was bad, man. It was hard because my pride is I didn't want them to see me that way.
Right.
And I remember the phone call I made to my dad from the field hospital, and because he had known that we were going on a 9-day mission, and I could talk to him in 9 days. And this was 3 or 4 days later. And he answered the phone. I said, "Hey, Pop," and he knew it was me because I'm the only kid that calls him Pop. And he said, "Why am I talking to you?" I said, "They got me." "What do you mean they got you?" "Well, they had to take my right leg." And he said, "Are you going to make it?" And I said, "I don't know." "Well, you just hang in there. We'll see you in Germany. Sure, First Sergeant will be calling us any minute. We'll see you in Germany." And I went from being like this world-renowned warrior, this well-trained Gladiator to this little boy. And I just said, please hurry. It was crazy. I'll never forget that. You know, it just goes to show you, like, you don't know shit. You're never as prepared as you think you are.
Yeah.
And they got me back so quickly that they didn't even bother sending anybody to Germany. I was only in launch school for like 18 hours. They stabilized me enough to get me back, and that's where a lot of hell started. I mean, I was in the operating room every 48 to 72 hours the first few months I was home, and did 3 months or so in Bethesda, left there, went to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. I was there for 15 months. People need to understand too that just because you leave the battlefield and you leave war doesn't mean that the heartache and the trauma and the tragedy stops. There was not a month that went by I wasn't paying my respects to a flag draped body in a hospital room. I mean, it was pretty regular. And having to see the pain that those families feel, and them looking at me, that probably thinking to themselves, like, why is he alive?
Right.
And not my son or my daughter, right? A very human thing to think, clearly. But you just try and love them through it, man. You just try and love them as hard as you can. And, I was very blessed to have a lot of emotional medicine in the form of human beings that I never knew, that are now very close to me while I was in the hospital, that had a lot to do with me surviving. But it was hard. I mean, it was very hard being trapped, because you're trapped in every sense of the word. You're not going anywhere.
Right. You know that you've got another surgery coming up in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months, and then there's going to be rehab, and there's going to be.
Oh, I mean, it was endless.
Right.
It was endless.
Yeah. And you didn't have an idea of when it was all going to to be.
No,
because then you got to check and see. Okay,
did it take?
Did we fix everything?
Yeah. And I've had over 50 operations and over 20 blood transfusions. Wow. And I just stopped counting at 50 because I was like, that's a good round number.
How long did that process take? That whole period of surgery?
I wasn't out of the hospital, like out for around 18 months. And the problem is when clearly there was more than one problem, but when I got out, I was a drug addict. I mean, I didn't go in a drug addict, but I sure as shit left one. And it was
Vicodin or
no, well, you name it.
Yeah,
fentanyl was my go-to.
Fentanyl.
Yeah.
They were prescribing that for pain, or
oh yeah. Wow. Fentanyl, Demerol, Dilaudid.
Wow.
I mean, morphine, hydrocodone, like you name it, I was on it. Methadone, and it was one hell of a process. I mean,
yeah. How are you? Because granted, you've got family, you've got a support system, but you're still there 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my family early on, my family would rotate. Like, they stayed with me my dad was a banking executive at the time, and he didn't leave my bedside for 62 days. He and my late mother, like, they all, and those people didn't even like being in the same zip code, let alone room, but they came together and alternated, and I had, aunts and uncles and cousins, and my brother, my sister, everybody played a hand in it. Friends, like everybody. Unfortunately, the way it usually goes is that this significant trauma brought a lot of people together, and it made it a no shit family unit. And then, as soon as that goes away, you go back to
normal life.
The bullshit, man. That's
the everyday, the mundane,
that breaks into the peace, and the love that it's supposed to be.
Right.
I lost touch with a lot of them, and we went different directions, and it's sad. but it's just part of the human process. And I never stopped loving any of them, right? I mean, but at some point you have to ask yourself, okay, do I value my peace over their pain? And you have to make that decision. And at some point you have to make a decision for you and say, okay, I choose healthy selfish.
So there was some element of toxic relationships there?
Since I was born.
Yeah.
Just like in your family. And every single person listening's family. Just the way it is. Right? I mean, and I think that we let all this stuff leak in that has no place. And then we get inundated with it. You know, because I believe as human beings, we're born to do two things: love and be loved. Mm-hmm. That's it. And everything in between is why the whole world knows who Jerry Springer and the Kardashians are. There's giant distractions to the only two objectives we've all got. And that's where all the turmoil and all the craziness comes from. And it's generational, rooted in our DNA. You know, just like you didn't teach your kids to manipulate to get what they want. Just like I didn't teach mine. They were born with that.
Right.
Survival of the fittest. It's built in.
Right.
And some people end up mastering that to get what they want. And in most cases, it ends up very toxic. I was one of those people. I was absolutely one of those people. And, you know, now I do it in a different way. I do it for good. Whereas before, you know, it definitely wasn't for good.
So from the time that you were, those 18 months that you were in the hospital, what led you down that path towards starting One Tribe?
So I really, really struggled for a long time. Ended up getting in a relationship that I had no business being in, but with anyone, let alone a marriage. But I was never a good patient. You know, I was always in fight mode. It's just the way I've been my whole life. If I'm backed into a corner, I only knew one way out. You know, I was never given tools other than I'm just going to fight my way out. And so clearly that didn't, the biggest blessing from my first marriage were Jackson and Jameson. You know, my two boys both of them are miracles in every sense of the word, because I never checked out on my own. Got damn close, you know, but never did. And so it was, hell, the fact I never OD'd even accidentally is a miracle. But getting off the drugs was, I can say with conviction, I know why drug addicts stay drug addicts. I mean, I've never been that sick in my life.
Just the withdrawals, the physical withdrawals.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, and I don't understand why we waterboard or do the things, like just give them opiates for 7 days and then take them away.
Really?
Then question them.
Shit, that's actually pretty genius. I mean, that's fucked up, but it's genius.
Well, that's what our government does for us.
Right.
Why can't we do it to our enemy?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, they throw pills at us like it's candy.
Yeah. Well, and it's been, thankfully, it's kind of changing slowly.
Slowly it is. I agree with that. Definitely not fast enough, because there's a reason they call it Big Pharma. Yeah. But, you know, I think majority of them are just people trying to make a living. You know, there's the very few that do extremely well and have a lot of power, right?
Yeah.
It's the gap between the wealthy and the making it is getting further and further every day.
Yeah.
And until we come together as a people, because that's where our power is, that's not going to change.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't come down to like a revolution for that to happen.
If it does, I will say this, it'll make the first one look like Sesame Street.
Right.
And for all these people that are, you know, like, I'm ready for a civil war, it's like, be careful what you wish for. Because you have no idea what that entails and what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's be careful what you wish for.
Mm. Yeah.
And so it's, you know, I just feel like it's ignorance is bliss. There's a reason it's a saying. But just like misery loves company. It's the, you know, I got a phone call that really altered the course of my life about losing a guy from our unit, and you know, it really affected me because I just remember thinking, because these guys, man, went through every major battle you could go through and lived. And it was like, they are the ones that earned the name Battling Bastards. I mean, they went through some unbelievable battles. And I was just remember thinking, like, damn, to survive all that. And then you come home and do that like that. I just
What happened?
We lost a guy doing OD, and I was like, what the fuck, man? Why after you survived all that? And it just really hit me, man. It just impacted me a lot. And so I ended up going, I called my head doctor in San Antonio, and I was like, hey, doc, good news, I'm getting off all the drugs. At this point, I was taking around 55 pills 3 times a day, eating between 8 and 12 fentanyl pops a day.
Oh, wow.
I was a full-on drug addict. And
they were still prescribing it to you? I mean...
Oh, yeah. Because it was my normal dose. Thing is, too, is that for me, everybody's body reacts differently to medication, right? Unfortunately, for mine, my body fights it, right? Which is like not shocked, but you know, it's just what it is. And so it takes 3 or 4 times for me what it does for you to make you comfortable, and it just is what it is, right? Or it takes 5 or 6 times for you. It's just everybody's body's different,
right? It
doesn't always react the same for everybody else. And for me, it's just I needed more, which led to more. And I mean, the last 15, 20 operations I had, I recovered in the ICU just so they could monitor my breathing. They were just afraid that everything was just going to stop. You know, because there was a couple times where, you know, systems started shutting down. And they were like, fuck, what do we do? Like, I finally ended up with some nerve blocks, which really helped. But the problem is you can't feel the rest of your appendage.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
You know,
it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. But I was grateful for it.
So your friend passing, is that what kind of sparked it? I
knew then I wanted to do something greater than I was going to ever be. Just like the Marines, right? Just like team athletics. Always wanted to be a part of something that pushed me to be better, regardless of how stupid I was being in the process. And I laugh because it's true. But I freaking loved being challenged, and I love challenging people. I mean, my parents could attest to that. But so look at my wife and my sons. But it's like the thing is I want to be better every single day. I want to be pushed every single day. Like if you're in my circle, I want your very presence to be a command presence that makes me want to be a better human.
That's great. You're not growing, you're dying.
Right. And so I ended up getting out of the hospital, ended up back here in DFW and went through a program at the Center for Brain Health and Brain Performance Institute, and ended up getting on board with them and working with them for a few years, and got to meet some people that Gave me some different perspectives. And at the time, I was still trying to figure out my way, and which was anyone, it was by no means a smooth transition. I don't think those exist. And the fact of the matter there is, it's just being in the military or in a chaotic environment, whether war or not, is easier. It's inherently more dangerous, but it's easier than being a civilian.
Well, it's a hell of a lot easier to distinguish life from death, right? It's like, this is life and death. It simplifies things to a certain extent, right?
And to a degree, it's like you eat when you eat, you drink when you drink.
Right.
Don't die, wake up, rinse, repeat.
Right.
Whereas here, you have extended family in town, ask them where they want to go out to eat. You might as well ask them to resolve the theory of relativity.
Right.
It's because we're spoiled.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And it's just the way that goes. It's all by design, right? Regardless of where you go, it's going to fill the void that gives you life. But we have to be, we're instant gratification mammals. We want it right now, and we want it this way. It's like, no, that's not how it works. You've been lied to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just like when the tribe we're doing an event or whatever, and it doesn't happen anymore, but for a while I'd see free on a flyer, and I'm like, don't do that. What? Don't use the word free. Why? Because it's bullshit. It's a made up marketing word.
Right. Nothing's free.
Nothing. Somebody somewhere somehow had to pay for it in some way. There's not a thing that's free. Period. And so stop saying it. It's bullshit. Right? And I think we've just been so manipulated by the powers that be that we end up believing our own shit. And it leads us astray.
Yep, amen, man.
And that's exactly where they want us. Because then we're longing for anything.
Mm.
And then we get this false sense of security through things that are by no means indicative of what we really need.
Yeah.
And then people look up and they German salute and they're like, "Why? How the hell did we get here?"
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, look in the mirror. Odds are that's your biggest problem.
For sure.
And so, leaving the place I was at, coming here, going through these things and learning, I really got to learn. I was curious as to why I thought the things I thought and felt the way I felt, and, what could make me better. Because I knew I had to do it. I knew the government wasn't going to do it. I knew they were going to lie to me and tell me they wanted to do it, but I knew it was bullshit. I never knew it as well as I know it now.
I think, as we all get older and start families too, without your experience especially, proves that mindset. But I think as you get older and you have kids and you start to assume more responsibility, you start to realize just how much of that is your responsibility.
100%.
And that the government's interest is not your interest, it's their interest. And that's how it's always been.
Yeah. Farmer.
Right.
Yeah, when they're done with the farm, they don't give a shit about the farmer.
Yeah.
Not their problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And, it's a sad reality, but it's reality. And so you have to do for you. And make sure your circle consists of people that will not only have your back, but they'll have your front too.
Yeah.
Right? And that will talk about you and defend you in a room that you're not in.
Amen. For sure.
There's not many of those.
No.
You're going to have a handful in your lifetime, right? And you hold them close because you're not going to have many.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I met some Marines in DFW that were very motivated. And we knew the suicide epidemic amongst the warrior class. We already knew it was a thing.
Yeah.
Because we kept getting phone calls, about dudes we knew. And it's like, what the hell is going on?
And that stat 22, is that still?
Yeah, well, that was never the real number. right? I mean, no one knows the real number.
Sure.
But that's what the study that the VA did in 2012 came out, and it stated 22 a day. We knew it was higher because they didn't. It was a government study. Like, tell me the last time that you got something from the government that was ironclad, dead nuts accurate.
Right.
It's like, I'll wait. Like, tell me the last time you were super stoked about going to the DMV.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So number was 22, but some Marines particularly got together and were like, all right, what are we going to do about this? And that's where the 22 push-up challenge was birthed. And that went viral several years later after The Rock did it. And we never wanted money for the push-up challenge. Like, that wasn't the goal. The goal was knowledge. The goal was education.
Right.
Because if we made enough noise and rattled enough cages, maybe it would make its way up to the hill and some policies and procedures would be changed to where we could be empowered as opposed to labeled.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need help with the labels. Society does that pretty damn good all by themselves.
Right. We
need help with empowerment. And so then it evolved into what it evolved into, and went viral all over the world. And we had countries doing it. I mean, we had South Korea, Germany, friggin' Iceland, the UK, all these different countries doing this thing, and it was their warriors doing it, which told me clearly, like, this is not just our problem.
Right.
This is a problem around the world, in particular with our allies, that have been a part of this whole debacle in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And it was that was very sobering, but all the while I kept losing guys. And so I drank more, never passed up a line of cocaine, or joint or whatever, because I didn't know how to deal with loss. I didn't have to deal with that in war. I didn't have to deal with that as a football player, as a rugby player, as a student athlete. Never had to deal with loss.
Yeah.
And it was just like, boom, 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 just dropping, like almost to the month. And so the way I dealt with it was going harder in the bottle and just became a full-on alcoholic.
Do you remember like a specific time when you're like, okay, I need to change this, turn it around and use it to help others?
Yeah. This November 13th will be 7 years when it happened.
What was that? What happened?
It was pretty much like God poking his head through the ceiling and saying, if you don't stop your shit, you're the next one they're going to bury. And before that, I had this conversation with a Marine that I love and respect, and was big time emotional medicine for me in the hospital, and came to see me often. And he came in town and he was like, "How you doing, Jake?" And I gave him the like quintessential bro answer.
I'm good.
Good, bro. Right?
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "Bro," and it was beautiful because he totally called me on my shit. And he looked at me in my eyeballs and he said, "After everything we've been through together, I really don't appreciate you looking at me in my face and lying. So I'm going to try this again." And I was like, shit.
Damn. There you go. That's a friend right there.
Yeah. He said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm suffering." He said, "Why are you suffering?" I said, we keep losing these guys and I don't know why. What are we doing too much of? What are we doing and what are we not doing enough of? Like, what can we change that we haven't thought about? Or what have we thought about that we can change? And I'm just feel like my wheels are spinning, and I'm a full-blown alcoholic and a womanizer, and just really at my core a piece of shit. And he looked at me and he said, when the hell did you become so important? And I immediately started to stand up, and he said, before you hit me, let me explain. And I said, all right, I sat back down. He said, Jake, last time I checked, you weren't nailed to a cross and meant to suffer for 3 nights and 3 days. Last time I checked, that wasn't you, right? I was like, nope, wasn't me. He said, so all that guilt and that shame and that pride and self-righteousness and all those things you're holding on to for losses that had nothing to do with you, that's all been paid for. Let it go. It's not your fault. You didn't tie that rope. You didn't load that weapon and pull the trigger. You didn't take those pills. You didn't pick up that knife. It wasn't you, right? I said, no. I said, let it all go. It's not yours to carry. It's all been paid for. And it was like a 600-pound silverback gorilla let go of my soul. And it was the first time I was able to breathe and feel free from those things that really controlled me and dominated my mind.
It was subconsciously just stifling you, yeah.
It was killing me.
Yeah.
Literally. Known as compassion fatigue. It'll kill you if you don't check it. I didn't learn about that until I was in rehab. And not long thereafter is when I was a freaking guest of honor at a Marine Corps ball, and I was shit hammered out of my mind. And I'm sure I made an ass of myself and the Marine Corps, unfortunately. Obviously something I'm not proud of, but very certain that's happened more than once. But I woke up the next day, and it was like God poked his head through the ceiling, and I shit you not. You don't stop. Right here, right now. You're the next one they'll bury. And I was, at this point, I'd gotten to the point where, I'd be riding my Harley down the tollway, damn near blackout drunk, going 100 miles an hour, and I'd think about an 18-wheeler putting me in the concrete barrier in the middle of the highway, and I'd smile. Jeez. So guys like me or that have similar life experiences to me already have not a lot of fear of death because we realize how small and little control we have, but inviting it is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I knew then that
like wanting it, yeah,
this is a problem. Sure. So I was in a board meeting we were still 22 Kill, and in the executive session, I told them, hey, I'm going to get done with this meeting, and I'm going to go get on a plane, and I'm going to go to California, and I'll be back in 30-ish days, and if I have a job, great. If I don't, great.
How long had 22 Kill been around when you decided?
Now you're making me do math, bro. It's not nice.
Ish.
Not nice. 6 years.
Okay.
6, 7 years. And then I told them, this is what we're doing, and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And one of my board members at the time told me, he said, Jake, I was going to say something to you. And I looked at him dead in the face, and I said, but you didn't. But that's on me. That's not on you. But now that you've had your feel-good moment, are we done? And so I went, learned a lot of shit. It's where I learned about compassion fatigue, and that's what I want your listeners to take that seriously. It's a real thing. Usually people that grow up as fixers.
Emotional fixers.
Yep.
Yeah.
More often than not, those people really suffer with compassion fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely deal with some of that for sure.
It's very, it'll sneak up on you. You have to be very cognizant about it. And, just like comparing and contrasting pain and suffering, that's something that we're obsessed with as a society. And I just pretty please with cherries and shit, stop doing that.
Right.
Because people tell me all the time, like, "Hey, Jake, I can't imagine what you've been through and with all the everything." First of all, like, why would you? Why would you want to imagine that?
Right. There's a certain amount of, there's a ton amount of needless guilt that we put on ourselves just when it comes to reading a post on social media. You hear about somebody you don't know dying, and you hear somebody talking about it, and there's this sort of somber mood in the room about it, and you have no control over what happened to this person. And it's one thing to maybe have compassion, but you don't have compassion. You're having compassion for someone that you don't even know. And so you're exhibiting these feelings of guilt for a situation that you have no control whatsoever. And that's not to say turn a blind eye to it and say, F you.
Yeah.
But it's acknowledging like, what good is this doing?
Well, that's the thing, is that and that's okay. I think, I think some of that's important. I think it's important for you to look at situations and say, man, that sucks. Like, I'm going to hug my wife and my kids a little tighter.
Yeah, to give you some perspective.
Right?
For sure.
I think everybody needs a little perspective every day in this modern industrialized superpower that we live in. Right? Because it's not the people of this country I'm ashamed of, and it's not this country that I'm ashamed of. It's our government and the media that I'm wholly ashamed of.
Yeah. Amen.
And I'm pretty sure our founding fathers are rolling in their graves. So, take with that what you will. You're entitled to your opinion. I fought and bled for mine, so you'll hear it. But I just I need people to understand that it's already hard enough to be completely in love with the person staring back at you in the mirror. That's hard enough. Because we all have a past. We all have things we're ashamed of, we're not proud of, and all those things. But when you compare and contrast your pain and suffering to somebody else's, what you're doing without realizing what you're doing is making it harder to love the person looking back at you in the mirror. Because you're subconsciously taking away from what's made you who you are.
Yeah.
Stop doing that. Pain and suffering is pain and suffering is pain and suffering. It can't be measured.
Right.
There's no Richter scale on it. It can't be quantified. It's all relative.
Yeah.
By design.
You can be raised with all the luxuries of the world and still be the most miserable person on earth.
On the planet.
Yeah.
It's all by design. Because the one commonality for every human being on the planet, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, socioeconomic status, all irrelevant, is that you understand pain and suffering and that it sucks. The only thing that puts us on even ground as the human race is that. Literally, everything else can be different. That's the one thing we can all agree on. The one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think until we embrace that and find victory in our vulnerability while refusing to be hostages to our pride while embracing that, it's like I'll say, I'll see you in the same shithole a year from now, spinning in circles.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I learned early on, bro, that, my God, this is not just a veteran issue or military issue. Because the more I immerse myself in it, drunk or not, I was just a high functioning addict, alcoholic,
Yeah.
The more I learn that these are human problems.
Yeah. Yeah. There's going to be triggers that can lead somebody to mask any kind of feeling, whether it's from trauma, military trauma, from trauma growing up, from any kind of trauma.
Doesn't matter. Everyone you know has a touch of post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Right? But the media, the people in the idiot boxes, as my Mimi used to call them, those for TVs. She'd call TVs idiot boxes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, was she right, man? But you're told what you want to hear, right? To put you in the lane that you feel like you're supposed to be in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's this infatuation in our society with titles. You know, when it's like we forget the number one title that makes us all one, human. It's like we've just forgotten that title. Like, oh, he's a CEO, or like, I didn't even want to be CEO. Like, I didn't want that title. The board was like, nope, you need to be. And I was like, okay, what's important to get into? You know, most of the board members are well-to-do businessmen, and I respect them. And I understand, I respect how they've gotten to where they've gotten.
Sure.
But there's a lot of things when it comes to philosophy or when it comes to human relatability that, you know, I don't think they are where I am.
Well, you're not going to be no one's going to be a CEO on their deathbed. You know what I mean? Or after you die. So yeah.
Silk sheets or paper one's irrelevant.
Right.
You're not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And God willing, you know, if you're granted that to be on your deathbed, doesn't matter what's in your bank account.
Yeah.
What matters is in your soul account.
Mm.
I don't want to be on my deathbed and go, if only I would have.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be content, man. My wife, my kids, my family, my circle is going to know exactly how I feel about them. No questions asked.
That's great. That's great, man. I want to talk about what 22 Kill does, and there's other organizations off of One Tribe besides 22 Kill, but what would the process be for somebody that you guys are helping? And I'm sure it's different, but like walk me through kind of like.
So we evolved. This is important for people to understand. 22 Kill, what that meant was the 22 vets that died by suicide, you know, or did. And again, number, it's more than 22, I'm sure. Especially now post-pandemic. But that's what the 22 stood for. Okay, we were the original 22. Now there's all kinds of 22 stuff everywhere. Mm-hmm. We were the original. Just the way that goes. We created the push-up challenge, not all the other ones that try and own it. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
But the kill, because suicide's an act, regardless of how you slice it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be in your face, right? Because when you talk to these widows and these children who've lost a mother or father, husband, wife, to the act of suicide, that's trauma that never ends.
Mm-hmm.
That will find its way in every single generation till the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Right.
And so the more work I did, the more I immersed myself in this world, I learned that it's a human problem. And I was hell-bent on never changing the name. And I was very, very, very adamant with the board about we will not change the name. Because I was told by a lot of people, you're never going to get very far with that name. It's too much, too in your face. And, and little did they know, like, you're just speaking to my ego every time you say that.
Tell me what not to do.
Right.
Please.
This should be fun, you know? And, we had a couple big breaks, and clearly God's been in control the whole damn time because we're still a thing and I'm not dead. So it's like both absolute miracles. But I got a phone call about a suicide that really shook me. And because this individual knew all about us. We had done a lot of stuff with this department, like a ton of stuff. And I remember asking the boss, like, why wouldn't they come to us? Said Jake, non-vet. I said, so? We opened up everything to LEO and first responder, law enforcement officer, LEO, a couple years ago. Well, what's your name? 22 kill. Well, fortunately and unfortunately for you, Jake, y'all have done a hell of a job of making the whole world know that that's veteran specific.
Mm-hmm.
And do you see a person like that getting in front of a guy like you to get help?
Mm.
And it hit me right in my soul. And I was like, shit. Emergency board meeting. Time for the name to change. It was right before the world shut down. And one of the board members, one of the first questions I got was, Jake, did you start drinking again? Straight up.
Because you were so adamant about
So
this.
adamant.
Yeah.
So adamant.
You felt called to do it, man. That makes sense. And
I told them about this conversation I had. Obviously, it was very detailed. I pretty much regurgitated the exact conversation. And, you know, I believe in people's anonymity, and I'll display my scars all day long, but other people's stories to tell is their story to tell, right? And so, but I was very frank with the board and open about the conversation. And I said, it's the last phone call I'm ever going to have about a death because of my pride and ego. I won't have another one of those.
So moving over to one tribe was the idea is we want to not just help
The human tribe.
Yeah. Anybody.
And so my oldest son, years ago, we were leaving a speaking engagement in downtown Dallas. And luckily, over the years, we've gotten to take him to several of them, which I love because it's, you know, I want them to see everything full circle, you know? And I guess to a degree, too, I want them to see grace under fire and how to handle pressure and with grace and gratitude. And we were driving home and my son said, Dad, he was like 8 or 10. I don't know if Ashley was here, she'd know like immediately. Like he was 8 years old in 7 days. It's crazy.
Don't you remember?
Yeah. But he was like, Dad, I have a question. And I always get nervous when they say that to me because I've always told them, I'll never lie to you. I'll always be honest with you, even when it makes me look like shit. I will tell you the truth. You know, no secrets, no lies. Honesty is the only policy, period. And so anytime I'm like, Dad, I have a question, I'm always like, oh, gosh.
Make it an easy one, please.
Yeah, I get a little nervous because, but I've already answered majority of the ones that made me look like shit. So, but at this time I really hadn't. And he said, Dad, I have a question. So, all right, send it. He said, when you say at the end of your speaking engagements that everybody deserves to live well. He said, do you include your enemy when you say that? And I was like, uh-oh.
It's a good question to ask.
So I had two thoughts right away. First one was I had a very proud dad moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, because that's deep. It was a deep question
sure.
that I could tell he had thought about more than this one time.
Yeah.
Secondly, I knew I needed to answer quickly and with conviction. And so I turned around and like actually grabbed the steering wheel because I knew I needed to be looking at him. And I said, absolutely. And he looked at me like a confused puppy. He was like, Dad, they tried to kill you. And I said, why do you think I was there? In their backyard. I said, son, this is something you have to understand. There's nothing personal about war. It's business. It's not personal. We were sent to a place to do things that we were told to do by a government that we have no idea what the motivation is.
Sure.
They were defending their backyard. I don't take it personally. They deserve to live well too. I said, and that's the trick, son, is majority of things in life are business. And when you let the personal leak in, everything starts to get blurry. So start learning that now.
It's a good lesson to take away.
And he was like, all right, got it, Dad. I was like, good. But I'll never forget that. Because there was one other time I was about to do the coin toss for Texas LSU a few years ago. And this lady that worked for I believe it was the Austin Statesman, she asked me, this female reporter, we're sitting down at this cafe. And she said, hey, so what would you do if you met the people that made the bomb? And it like put me back in my chair.
Like the H-bomb? Like
the bomb that I hit.
Okay, all right, okay.
All right, the bomb that my team and I hit. And I was like, huh. And I like the older I get and the more I live in sobriety and wellness and grace and gratitude and all the things, the slower I am to react based out of emotion.
It's hard to do. Takes
very hard to do. Yeah. But name the last time you acted out of emotion and the outcome was what you wanted.
Sure. Yeah, never.
Right. And so I sat back and I thought about it and I looked at her and I said I would hug them. When I could tell she was really disappointed with my answer.
That's the best answer you can give. It made you who you are, man.
And she's looked at me, and before she could even ask why, I said, look, I have the relationship with my father that I have because of this, and my brother because of this. And I've met amazing, incredible people, and I've been able to do some amazing, incredible things because of this. You know, I wouldn't have had all these opportunities. I'm about to do the coin toss for Texas and LSU football here in Austin at Derrick Royal Stadium, whatever it is. If I said that wrong, sorry to all the Longhorns, because I love LSU at my heart. But I pull for Texas because of my wife. But it's like, that would have never happened if this day didn't happen.
Yeah. And one tribe, just everything. I mean, for you, your involvement with them would have been that path would have completely steered in a different direction. But
no doubt.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fact that we're still around today, post-pandemic, made it through the pandemic. I mean, a lot of Fortune 500 companies folded within the first 60 days.
Right.
Of a global pandemic, which is mind-boggling to me. And I remember asking the board, like, what the hell is going on? Like, Jake, no one had a plan for end of world scenario.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. We were just blessed enough to have enough in the kitty to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We didn't lay off one person.
Wow.
Because when people ask me, like, do your employees get paid? I'm like, yeah, they have families and bills and shit. Yeah, they get paid. But they are the program. Right. Whatever, depending upon whatever program it is. Like, you know, we don't have, when people say, like, explain to me what you do, you being one tribe. And I'm like, okay. And then I usually ask, okay, if I were to tell you, if I told you have a choice, that there was a tornado or some natural disaster somewhere, and you can take this chainsaw and go clear these dead trees or these trees that were blown into the road, and you can restore some type of order in these places in order for the other crews to come in and start rebuilding and so on and so forth. Or you can go with this human being who is at the height of their depression and anxiety and hypervigilance and suicidal ideation and all these other things. and you can help them unpack their soul and help rebuild them to where they feel worthy of living well. Like, which one are you going to take?
Well, yeah, for sure the second.
Like,
I would.
You would?
Yeah, I would take the second.
What do you think the number one, the most common answer is? Give me the chainsaw.
It's the utilitarian thing. You might help a lot more people if you clear up the path for other people, but it's not going to affect
temporarily.
them as much. Yeah, it's not going to affect them like they would that one person.
Right. Well, that other thing's extremely scary too, because how many people are walking around and they've totally not tapped into their own demons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I speak all over the world when people tell me like, Jake, I'm afraid to do a deep dive, afraid of what I might find. And I call bullshit on every single one of them.
Is this a lot of mostly vets, or is it also
this
just
is all
anybody?
All walks of life, man.
Yeah.
All walks of life. When they say this and I call bullshit, they're like, whoa. I'm like, that's a cop-out. Like, what do you mean? You know exactly what you're going to find. That's why you don't do it. But this just in, you're never going to outrun you. Ever. Good luck. I don't give a damn if you're on an island in the middle of nowhere by yourself.
It'll catch up with you.
You're still there with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't catch up. It goes with you.
Mm.
You don't temporarily outrun it. You don't temporarily escape it. It's always there.
Mm.
The only way you get rid of demons is you wake their ass up and you exercise the hell out of them in order to evict them.
Mm.
Then you can grow and heal forward.
You mentioned the pandemic earlier. How many, did you notice an uptick, obviously? Because
So the first year of the pandemic, our intake process went up 160%. The following year, it went up 220%.
Wow. How many people?
Thousands.
Wow, that many people. You're working that many people a year.
It's like, what happened during the pandemic is that 98% of the world realized that there is a drastic difference between being alone and lonely. Those are two completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
A majority of people lived in a nice house full of their own family and were lonely. And it scared the hell out of them. So it was massive uptick. That was scary as hell because I always said we're never going to be the VA. We're never going to have a waiting list. And God was like, hold my salad and watch this.
Mm.
Like overnight waiting list. This became a supply and demand issue.
Right. And you're helping people remotely across the country or in person?
I mean, we've helped people in some way, shape, or form all over the globe. Right. And then so the ways that we do it a lot of it was traditional when we still had our own individual therapy program, talk therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But that became very unsustainable very quickly.
With that number of...
It was not possible.
Yeah.
We couldn't make it. We wouldn't survive. It's just, it got so out of control so quickly.
How'd you adapt to that?
Not very pretty. I didn't make it look good. But I think mostly we leaned in. We leaned in and we loved hard and we were like, okay, it's a shit show, but it's our shit show. And we're just going to love them the best we can.
And so do you pair them with like...
yeah, it would depend. I mean, it's... Just because you send someone to a therapist doesn't mean that they're going to get the help they need.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just like with drugs or pharmaceuticals. Like, just because you take one doesn't mean it's going to do for you what it does for somebody else.
But usually with drugs, when someone knows, like, when you've made the decision, like, I'm done, there's a lot more of a chance of you quitting versus saying, like, there's an intervention with the family, right? So a lot of these people who are coming... with thoughts of suicide, are they going out of their own volition and coming to you guys and saying?
Well, so it depends, right? I mean, It depends on. if they just get sick and tired of being sick and tired, because usually those are the ones with the highest success rate, or if they're, I beat the shit out of my spouse last night and I got arrested and I just got bailed out of jail, I need help. Well, do you need help to make you better, or do you need help to not spend a year in jail?
Right.
And
what's the motive?
And everything in between.
Yeah.
It's by no means for the faint of heart. Right? And I've been told so many times, like, there's a shelf life for this work. Yeah, for the weak ones. Yeah. The ones that have ulterior motives in doing this work.
If your motives are altruistic and you once you said love to love and to be loved, right? Yep. That's it. That's all the only two things. And if your motivation is to help people, and
there's no shelf life.
It's energy for you. If anything, it feeds you.
And that's the thing, is it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
It's like everything we should be doing should be mutually beneficial, right? No pain. I'm tired of causing pain. I've caused plenty of pain. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'll ever lose the ability. God knows. I have more than enough of the ability to do it.
Yeah.
But man, I just want to help people. I don't save anybody. We don't save anybody.
Yeah.
That's not true. I don't get tired of hearing people say that, because that speaks to, okay, we're just doing good.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, there's a God, we're not him. Like, we give people the tools to save themselves. We can't do the work for them, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one could make me get clean and sober, or be loyal and faithful to one human. Like, I had to do that.
100%. For sure.
So that's why I say that.
Yeah. You have to want to do it.
If you don't want to get better in whatever ailment you have, or whatever is making your life a living hell, if you don't want to change, you're not going to change.
Right. Yeah.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
And over the years, we've just gotten a lot better of identifying who's who.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard in certain situations, because they might even believe themselves that they want to change, but they're not willing to make the sacrifices or the changes necessary, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, if we're face to face, it's, give me 120 seconds. I'll tell you where you fall.
That's good. That's pretty good. Of those, of all the clients that come, how many of them are current? You don't have to give me an exact demographic breakdown, but how much of them now that it's grown to just more than just veterans and
yeah, we have a large percentage of vets, large percentage of military, first responder, firefighter, paramedic, EMT, law enforcement officer, families thereof, because we help all of them.
Right.
Like, we can't, if you just help the individual, it's not going to sustain.
Right.
Just like for Alcoholics Anonymous, you have Al-Anon for the family.
Right, for the family, right.
You got to be able to help everybody. Everybody's got to grow together. Rising tides raises all boats. Everybody's got to hill forward together. Right? I mean, because if you don't, well, then the probability of relapse and whatever it may be, it goes way up.
Yeah, for sure.
Way up. And our goal is to avoid that. Not to say you're not going to have bad days. I mean, those are guaranteed.
Yeah.
This is like we tell our sons, like, right things, right reasons. God will take care of the rest. Bad days are guaranteed.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the way it goes. Do that. Just like in each one of their rooms, stay humble, be kind, work hard. That's it. It's all you got to do right there. You're going to fail. That's okay. If you fail intentionally, we're going to have a different conversation.
For sure. No, but if you use it as an opportunity and know that failure is a room for growth.
That's the only way you grow. Where you grow. You never grow. Anyone who says, like, nope, I've never had any turmoil, it's just been smooth sailing since the time I came out.
Unless they have a really good mindset to begin with, and their mindset's already so straight that they already know this. It's not the case.
Inevitably, either way, it's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because that's the thing, is when this world is starved for connection right now. human connection. Right. And I know I could sit here and I could be talking about One Tribe Foundation and get into the nitty gritty and the details of what we do. And I don't feel like that's why God called me here to do this podcast. Like, if you want to learn about that, onetribefoundation.org. You'll learn yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it is just much more important for people to have connection with people. And the only way you're going to do that is through vulnerability. Because what people think about you is none of your damn business. That should not ever be a driving factor in your daily life, ever.
Something you learn to get better as you get older, I'd say, for sure.
For sure. And I think that you said it earlier about social media. Yeah. I hate social media.
Yeah. I've got obviously for this podcast, I do it, but
my wife does the whole social media communications for One Tribe, and it's like, she knows how much I hate it.
Yeah.
She knows I hate it. But her words, necessary evil.
Yeah.
And to a degree, I agree. But I think it's evolved into so much more than what it was set out to be.
Yeah.
You know, like, I know you have to use it. You have to use it to promote this podcast in order to get listeners, in order to stay relevant or to get more guests, so on and so forth. I understand all that.
Yeah.
But for 2 years in a row in our country, teenage girls have led in suicide.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I guarantee you, social media plays a major role in that.
Yeah, my kid's not getting a phone or social media until she's an adult, dude.
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't allow our 13-year-old to be on social media.
Yeah, there's no good from it. I personally have an AI software called Opus Clip that literally that takes the podcasts and finds where to do the clips, and then I schedule it so I don't get on social media. So it's scheduled for the week so that I know, like,
see, that's AI that could be good,
right?
But I promise you, it's not. There's
no, there's definitely the downside. But for me to know, like, if you know what your demons are, if you know what anybody will say, if you have enough restraint to get on social media and look at cute cat videos and then for a few minutes and then move off and you're good, then hey, more power to you. But I'm not like that. So, if you know to restrain yourself and say, this is not necessary, this is a huge waste of time. And
it can turn into an addiction like anything else.
Absolutely. Especially with TikTok, man. Those are like the 8 seconds.
I have buddies send me TikTok videos every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, in no judgment, like, I don't judge them. And, but look, to each their own, right? Like, I'm not, live and let live. If it's not hurting you or somebody else, I don't give a damn.
Yeah. I know for me, for a fact, that, like, it's soul sucking. I feel it. I know
Good
it.
For you, dude, that you can identify that. Yeah. A lot of people can't, because a lot of people don't do the work you clearly do to feed their own soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's awesome that you do, because, I mean, it makes me feel a lot better about the fact that you've procreated.
Amen.
Right?
Like, passing that mindset on, for sure.
But that's exactly what I mean is like, if we, at some point, we have to decide, okay, our kids, it's up to me, up to you and our wives to make sure our kids are self-respecting, self-loving before they can do anything for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
We get caught up in, like, hey, do this for little Johnny, or make sure you don't say this to little Susie, before we tell them, hey, be sure to love you.
Yeah.
And be your own biggest fan and your own biggest advocate at everything you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, who cares what anyone else thinks?
Yeah.
You do you. Everyone else is taken.
Mm-hmm.
And every day you wake up, it's you versus you. Not you versus your class, not you versus your teacher, not you versus your coach, you versus us. It's you versus you. And don't forget, no one kicks the shit out of you more than you. So give yourself a break.
Amen. 100%, man. You were talking about vulnerability. Do you find that when you're dealing with first responders and vets who their role and responsibility is to help and protect other people? So I think there's a lot of times there can be some walls that are up there. Do you feel right? So do you feel like,
not to dime out these in particular professionals, but yeah, 100%, dude. I mean, it's not, because a lot of them are the alpha personality, and just because I say alpha doesn't mean I mean male always. There's a lot of alpha females. But man, it's not, and it's just it's habitual behavior,
right?
And the fear of judgment and ridicule, that really comes into play. Like, I don't want my chief or my friggin' CO or my wife or my sons or my daughters to, it's like, hey, you want to connect with them? Like, stop giving a shit what they think and be
why
real.
Is that? Why is showing vulnerability seen as a sign of weakness? So because I've never had that, but I can understand how somebody in a position of
because that's
power
been ingrained in our society.
Right. Especially those in positions of power. It's like, you can't show weakness or otherwise.
Majority of people that watch or have watched the Kardashians, Jerry Springer, they watch it for justification of oneself.
To make themselves feel better. So like, I'm not this shitty person.
It's not that bad. Yeah. Right? And they have something they can point to.
Right.
And it's like, then again, there you go again, comparing and contrasting pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, just let your shit be your shit, my shit be my shit, and we both just understand shit sucks.
Yeah. Well, how do you break through to someone who's dealing with that wants to change?
Someone
but they're not.
I deal with, if they end up in my office, it's like bad, because I don't have the alphabet soup behind my name. It's probably tough love time, and I tell them, like, if you know,
alphabet soup behind my name. Yeah. I haven't heard that. That's pretty good.
Well, I mean, and no judgment, but I don't, and I tell them, like, look, if you aren't gonna do what we tell you to do and utilize these resources that we're giving you, whether it be through our foundation or foundations we're partnered with, because we have tons of partners. We're not naive enough to think we can do this alone. Then I want you to tell me what you want your funeral to look like. And I want you to write it through your spouse's and your children's eyes, not yours.
Yeah, make them realize how important it is that showing this vulnerability is going to help in
because
changing.
Nothing will be you going through your vulnerability and your self-growth and healing.
Yeah.
Is completely incomparable to the pain that your family will feel at your funeral.
Right. Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, that'll be generational. You know, and some people, man, unfortunately, I just feel like they get so desperate for peace that they feel like that's the only way.
Do you, is there a way for people to get involved, volunteers and stuff like that?
Of course. Yeah. Look, again, the #1 tribefoundation.org. Check us out. Maybe we're doing something that you think's cool and you want to come take part in. Do it. Because here's the deal. I don't give a damn if you help one tribe or you help someone else somewhere else, but go do something. Somewhere. It's bigger than you'll ever be. Just pick something.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not designed to be selfish creatures all the time. We're designed as herd animals. Mm-hmm. And we need to be
social creatures
around other people. And so if you want to tell me how much you're struggling, then I'll tell you, go help somebody for no reason that can never repay you. Then come back and tell me what that did for your soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Feeling fulfilled helping others is the number one thing. Number one way to feel fulfilled is to help others.
I mean, I don't know about you, but you know, I'm
but intuitively it's not like that. Intuitively, especially when you're younger and you're, you know, if you're selfish, then you don't see that when you're younger. You think that the way to happiness is to give to yourself, right?
Well, when you're younger, you're still dealing with the whole survival of the fittest mentality. You know, like only the strong survive. I want to stick around. What can I do to get what I want, what I need?
Right.
Yeah. Right. I mean, but when, you know, because you're too young, you haven't lived enough life to be as scarred as you and I are, right? I mean, you're still innocent. And that's the thing. There's a lot of purity there. You know, with that comes a lot of ignorance too. You just haven't lived enough life.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I tell people all the time, like if we were raising money for dogs that not die by suicide, we'd be billionaires. Like seriously, we'd be sitting on billions of dollars to do the mission and the work we do because people don't get jaded by dogs. People get jaded by people.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but it's an unfortunate fact. And my thing is like,
They
hey,
like their dogs more than they like their fellow man. It's weird.
you could beat the shit out of your dog all day, every day, come home, and he's probably wagging his tail at the door, just happy to see you, waiting on his beating. Like, you know? Whereas human beings, man, it's, God, greed. Just greed. Give them a little bit of power, give them a little bit of money. I mean, look where we are right now. United States of America. You know, if we want to be powerful, no shit powerful, we need the people of 9/12 without the 9/11. Then we're powerful.
Break that down for me.
We shouldn't have to go through being attacked by a bunch of cowards for us to come together as a nation.
Yeah.
Shouldn't take that. Our power is in our numbers, period. And we're more divided now. I mean, my parents are 74, 75. And both of them say we've never seen it this way.
Really? Yeah. Because, you know, you look back at the news back in the 70s and you think, you know.
Yeah, post-Vietnam.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
It wasn't as bad as it is right now.
Social media to me is a big role in the media. Social media and media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and power and greed
Yeah.
plays a big role. A lot of power for very few to control the masses.
Do you notice? Yeah. And also, you know, you were talking about the Spartans who kill face to face and how killing in face to face is much different than through controlling a drone or, you know, a rifle.
Yeah.
Much in the same way that talking shit to someone on social media is
No, the
talking shit to their
keyboard warriors
face.
are endless.
But
There's going to be somebody probably from this podcast that's, you know, in their mom's basement that wants to feel like the biggest badass on the planet by beating the shit out of a keyboard and giving an opinion that they would never, ever bleed for because they're too much of a bitch.
Right. Yeah. But it's a serious thing though, because people, if you're on your, I got a thing back from when I was on my phone for too much. It tells you on your phone like how long you've been on my
your FaceTime
usage.
or whatever at the end of the week.
And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
8 hours, whatever
Dude,
it is.
can be shocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I see that and I'm like, so, okay, your average person's, you know, on social media for 2 hours a day, and that has replaced their social interactions with other people.
No doubt.
Largely. So when your social interactions become antagonistic, become aggressive, and that's a big part of the interaction, then
of course
you think that's what it's like in the real world.
And of course you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, for sure. And you're gonna have this viewpoint towards your fellow man.
At your core, you will be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Is I don't want to just be happy in life, right? And I want to feel joy and happiness the way God intended. Like I want to feel it the way that it's almost every time it hits you, it feels spiritual. And the only way to do that is to get through your own demons. The only way to do that is to be completely at peace with you.
Yeah.
And who and how you are, where you are at this point in your life's journey. World-renowned trauma psychologist Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says, you know, in order for you to grow forward and heal forward as a human being, you have to forgive yourself for everything you've done in your life in order to survive up at which the point you are right now.
Right. Acknowledging that these were survival mechanisms.
And most people never do that. Most people live surface level lives and never go beneath the surface because they're scared to death. You know, fear, just like I tell the boys, you know, like, look, fear of judgment, ridicule, all the things that are very human, having that dictate your greatness makes you achieving your God-given potential impossible. Just the way it goes.
Yeah. And so much of it is just it's actually so much of it is, it's like a survival mechanism that's completely useless. It's like subconsciously, it's like
it's counterintuitive.
Right, exactly. It's like, this is going to help me live. This is going to help me be part of this tribe by acting this way and holding onto this guilt or harboring this guilt for some weird reason.
It's all bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's what society tells us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing, man. And I mean, I know I got a little heated about the keyboard warriors there a minute ago, and my apologies. But like, I know people that have checked out because of that.
Yeah, for sure. People who have, because of political differences on social media, don't talk to you anymore, and their families
that are being shattered.
Yeah,
because of politics.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
over social media, nonetheless. Yeah,
I'm like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
Like, you really believe in totality that either side of the aisle truly gives you shit about you and your family's well-being?
Yeah.
Like, you're being lied to. You're being led to your own destruction.
Yeah. People on both sides honestly think that if Kamala's elected or if Trump's elected, it will be the end of our civilization. They honestly
unbelievable,
think
bro.
And it's so crazy how
it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Like, no matter which way it goes, it's gonna be a shit show.
Yeah.
No matter which way. And I couldn't tell you which way or the other it's gonna go. Who knows? I don't know. Because I don't think any of it's above board ever.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I think that we're just a bunch of peons that we go through life trying to do the best we can and make the most of what we have. And, you know, some of us are destructive and some of us aren't. And
yeah,
here's the deal, man. Like, straight up, I woke up every day and fought for evil for a long time. Because that's what this world is to me through my eyes, is one big fight between good and evil. And every day you wake up, you have to decide which side you're going to fight for. And sometimes throughout the day, it switches. Because we're humans. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It's okay to not be okay. That makes you completely normal. Like post-traumatic stress. Like, if you're diagnosed post-traumatic stress, or, you know, it's not a death sentence.
Right.
What that is that it's a completely normal reaction to an otherwise abnormal situation.
Right.
It's a survival mechanism
100%.
built in.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
You're normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, chill.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that's laden from the anxiety, from that anxiety perspective. I had 2010. I had a bad panic attack from underlying anxieties and stuff, and I checked out, like, depersonalization. I kind of, like, there's like a glass wall between me and the world, and so since then, being present and, like, in the moment, and that's what kind of started my kind of, like, own personal journey with this. But being present in the moment was always really hard to do because I was always emotionally kind of checked out, and so that's, like, for me, the last 14 years has been this kind of, like, ongoing process to just
good for you, bro.
Yeah, just to be back and
man, good for you.
Yeah, and again, I
see, and that was my point in the very beginning. Like, you're feeding your inner warrior.
Yeah.
You're letting your warrior eat.
Right.
And that, I dig that. Like, that is the type of things that people need to hear. Mm-hmm. People need to know, like, hey, I had this event and this is how I struggled and this is how I changed it. And because you're vulnerable.
Right.
You're being real. Yeah. You're not trying to gain shit, man. You're just trying to get someone to be better tomorrow than they were today.
Right.
And I applaud you for that.
Because we all, I mean, like you said, comparing pain is exactly right. I haven't been to war, and my seeming, comparing my pain to somebody else's is completely useless, because whatever my pain is the pain that I dealt with that led me to where I was.
Made you who you are.
Yeah, and so just there's not. It's hard though for a lot of people to be vulnerable and show it. So it's
and that's okay.
Yeah, but I think
it's a journey. Yeah, right. It's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah, like,
you're gonna die an eternal student of life. You just have to accept that.
Yeah.
Right. So what I tell people all the time, like, what's your ultimate goal? With one tribe, 22 kill. Like, what's your goal? Like, you want the number to be down to 0? And I'm like, no, that's not a realistic goal.
Right.
My goal is to have the human race understand that it's okay to have acceptance of the is. It is what it is, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your control stops outside your skin.
Mm-hmm.
You have zero control outside of your skin.
Yes.
Just be okay with that.
Yeah.
And every human being on the planet struggles with that fact.
For sure. Yeah. Amen. For sure.
And it's like, can we just lean in, please? There's been enough death, enough destruction, enough fighting.
Yeah.
Enough blood. My God, enough loss. Can we just please stop?
Yeah.
Just for a minute. At least can we just have a timeout and come to the center and go, hey, what's the real issue here?
Yeah.
What are we really fighting? You know? Because when you really look at it, and you look at it through unadulterated lenses that are pure in the outcome that you want, that is togetherness for human race, a lot of these things that you see really reveal themselves pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There's self-interest, self-gain.
For sure.
There's no room for that in the fight for the greater good. And if I identify that in you, you're not going to be in my circle very long.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And unfortunately, with everything, with media, with social media, it's like that's being propagated to where the majority of people, it's like the Matrix.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's like just observing, like, or it's just being fucking real. Like, just, I don't know. It's just being genuine. And
it's, I mean, that's the thing, is the world starved for it.
Yeah.
Starved for it. Because everywhere you look, in particular, social media, news, pick a channel, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting the same fake surface level bullshit. And so when you're able to unzip your chest cavity and spill your soul all over some people, that is going to make an impact. Yeah. They're going to latch onto that.
Yeah.
Right? When I can walk into a room and say, hey, listen, good news. Whether I'm speaking to 5 people or 5,000, and I say, everyone in here is equally fundamentally flawed. Everyone. And it's by design. So it's okay. Everyone relax. Because shit's about to get gnarly. Strap in, it's going to get bumpy. But it starts with me. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. I've done this, I've done that.
Right.
And I've arrived at the human I am now through a shit ton of pain. In a path that's, in my past, it's still on fire. Right? Here it is almost 7 years later. And that's okay. I am responsible for that, and I own it. And I will always be accountable for it. But it has nothing to do with how I'm going to live my right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot. It's a choice, too, in that sense, to be able. It's okay. We want to acknowledge where we came from and our triggers and the things that make us who we are, and the things that, so that we're wise enough to act in case situations like that arise, so we can be our best selves. But at the end of the day, being able to just let it all go and just be,
very challenging,
is hard, man. I mean, me personally, from having what I dealt with, but just in general, because you're bombarded by all the daily, all the shit that you have to do, just the small daily chores and stuff. And so those moments that you spend.
So find gratitude in those things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's one thing we've completely shut out of our lives. Like, finding gratitude, like the fact I get to wake up and be around.
Well, period, first of all.
Blessing.
Yeah.
Right? It's a blessing. It's like most of the guys I work with are believers, which makes it a lot easier. And when they'll come to me and they're struggling with something, and I'm like, hey, just be still and listen. Because majority of people are going to significantly struggle with this.
Oh, dude.
And it says in the frickin' book.
Yeah.
Be still, period. and know I am God, period. Doesn't say be still and meditate and pray while you're doing yoga. Doesn't say be still and think about your favorite song. Be still, period. And know I'm God, period. Like, I challenge you just every day for the first 2 minutes of your day to be still.
Dude, I go on a hour or 2 hour walk in the morning before the sun rises just to try to be still.
Hey, and you know what? And I think that's okay. I think that's great.
Yeah.
If you're just like, if you don't have the earbuds in, you're not
headphones.
listening
I'm literally
to music.
I'm just trying to just be and
And
listen.
it's so rad that you do that. I mean, there's a lot of that can be considered grounding. Like, you're connecting with the earth,
Yeah.
and the energy of the earth and the universe. And like, those are all real things. I believe in all these things, right? Because it's like, I don't believe that just two atoms exploded and here we are. Like, I just, I don't know. Like, I believe what I believe, but I also do know a lot about the human condition and the human elements that make up the human condition and the things that make people tick and take away from greatness and still joy and all these things, because I was a master at doing that for a long time for self-interest, self-gain.
Yeah.
I just refuse to live that way anymore. Right? So I think it's really important we have the ability to walk outside, look up, have gratitude. Thank you for that bird that won't shut the hell up. Like, thank you for me having to go to the grocery store to get groceries to feed my family and fight all the drivers. I mean, we're in DFW, let's be real. Like, oh my gosh, how do some of these people have driver's license still? Like, but we just find gratitude in everything you do. I challenge your listeners to find gratitude in everything you do for one day. For one day. Make yourself find gratitude in everything you do.
My kids, my family, and I we haven't done it since the start of the school year. We need to get back into doing this, but every night we would, with the kids, we'd ask them one thing that happened today that they're thankful for and what they're grateful for. And it's a practice. You start doing that regularly, you're like, oh man, it's actually, life's pretty good.
Like, holy crap, we're like way more blessed than a lot of people.
Yeah, well, especially when you're so used to the daily, the conveniences of the everyday life, like grocery stores like this. I'm a big fan of Stoicism, and in there, there's I was reading after I get done through half my walk, I walk back and I'm reading a book while I walk. Pretty smart move, but it was one of the ways to help you be grateful for the things that you have is to take things away from your life. So it said, like, make your life a bit more difficult, like walk to where you need to go, or back in the Greek time, Seneca would say, go with your dirty clothes, wear the same clothes, things like that, just to make your life a little bit more less comfortable than what you're used to. And I shit you not, 2 days later, this was 2 days ago, we're getting it fixed today. Our water went out because we have a leak at our meter.
Super.
Yeah. And I'm like, and so you could choose to be like, man, life sucks right now. This sucks. I don't have water. But no, if you reframe that and be like, no, I'm actually now damn lucky to know what it's like to have to go water. Because if I have to go shower, I have to go turn the water on, be really quick with it, or be mindful when I'm brushing my teeth and put a little bit of water from the water that we stocked up until we get it fixed. But things like that you don't realize like are helping you every single day that you're not grateful for. Those are the things like when there is a civil war or when that zombie apocalypse comes, you're gonna sure as hell be grateful for later.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is it's we're so abundantly spoiled.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, to the point of disgusting.
Yeah.
A discussion. I get so freaking fired up, man. When like the boys complain about like,
yeah, the sheer amount of toys that we have that I had as a kid or that kids have as kids.
Dude, it's like, insane.
Yeah.
It's like, or we had a whole bunch of family in town this weekend for, come to watch the boys play sports and do all this stuff and getting family time in and celebrating life and each other. And, one of my sons was like, I don't like sharing a bed. And I'm like, well, You could dig a hole that you have to sleep in and then, listen to mortars all night. Like, you could do that. And my dad immediately started laughing because he knew what I was saying.
Right.
I'm like, shut up.
Right.
Shut up. I don't want to hear that. Like, proves how spoiled you are. And it's our fault. Yeah. We do it.
Right.
And then we bitch about it as if like the fairy godmother is the reason it happened.
Yeah. Well, even if you're used to even if you have slept in a hole with mortars going off, when you get accustomed back into a comfortable life, you get perspective, but it's like,
dude, that's why I think majority of military really struggle with integrating back into civilian sector, particularly in our country, is because like everybody discussed us equally.
Right.
We're like,
you have no idea.
You bunch of ungrateful bastards. Like, because we have to suffer just because that's the way it is. We have to. I mean, we're not always going to get our resupply of water or chow or ammo or whatever. Like, it doesn't always work out that way.
Right. Yeah, we're not talking about like, my water's leaking slightly. It's more like, I don't have food. I haven't eaten in like 4 days.
Yeah, and some of these people in some of these other countries do not have running water.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a thing.
Right.
They don't have toilet paper. They don't have sewage systems. They don't have
grocery store shit, man, like food.
Right. And so that's why, like, I don't think everyone should serve in the military like Israel does. Like, because I don't think everybody's cut out for it.
But something to get.
But I think everyone should have to go visit a third world country and live the way they live for 2 weeks before they start whatever their adult life looks like.
Yeah. Find a way to go get your own food.
Yeah.
Right. Go kill a deer. Go
walk 2 miles for a pail of water and then 2 miles back and then boil it before you drink or cook with it or bathe with it. Like, oh, by the way, don't get eaten by a crocodile. Right. Like,
it does I'm not saying that that's a good way to live, but somewhere in between, it's simplification, simplifying your life, taking shit out that's not necessary, gives you perspective on what truly is important, right?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, provides an abundance of freedom.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's just like people that I know that have been in the nonprofit space for years and years and years, and then they just shut it down and they're like, I feel so much freedom. And it's like, I bet you do. What you feel is the lack of responsibility.
Right.
I think it's different than freedom.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing is that, again, no one's going to manipulate us more than we are. And I think the fact that you've been able to tap into what you've been able to tap into and live the way you're living on a daily basis is a beautiful thing. That's what we're after with everybody.
Right.
Like, hey, back off of you and love you more. You're pretty rad. I promise. You just got to get through all the freaking ashes.
Amen.
Like, it's okay. You know, it's going to be okay. You know, again, right things, right reasons. God takes care of the rest. Bad days are guaranteed.
On that note, man, this has been awesome, man.
Hey, thank you, bro.
I appreciate it, dude.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for allowing me not to just do a big elevator pitch for One Trap, because that's just...
I you know what? I did have questions in mind, but then when we started talking, I'm like, that's a lot. This seems a lot more substantive than something that people can go online and get.
Dude, this goes a lot further, right?
Yeah. Well, it solves the root of a lot of the problems that people at One Tribe are dealing with in the first place, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing is that's something that everybody's got to remember is we're all in this shit together.
Mm-hmm.
All of us, regardless of how. And I am of the belief that regardless of how you do or don't vote or who you do or don't pray to, or, you know, I don't care. Like, you're a well-intentioned human or you're a piece of shit. There's usually not a lot of gray there.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty cut and dry.
Right.
Yeah.
But I still believe regardless of where you fall, you deserve to live well. You're upright and breathing. There's a shot. You have a shot. Right. And I'll never judge anyone for not living well and choosing to not live well. Yeah. I won't do that.
Yeah.
Because that used to be me.
Mm-hmm.
But like when people from my former life tell me, like, I just want to honor our brother and we should go to a bar and get hammered. I'm like, that's not honoring them.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. Again, that's another lie.
Mm-hmm.
That's honoring your own pain. That's highlighting your own pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no medal or award or ribbon or piece of paper that justifies their loss.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to honor them, you wake up and live well every day. You be the best husband you can possibly be. Be the best father you could possibly be. Be the best leader in your community you can possibly be. That's how you honor them.
Amen. Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.